Greetings viewers, EricTheCarGuy here. I'm driving a 2004 Ford Explorer Eddie Bauer edition. Yeah, it's fancy. However, it has a noise, and that noise sounds suspiciously like a wheel bearing. Give a listen. It also sounds like it's coming from the left rear, and one of the ways that you can sort of check for a wheel bearing, and do this safely please, you don't have to do this really hard, but you can sort of slalom a little bit. Here it gets worse as I make that right-hand turn. The noise will get worse when you're turning the opposite way of the side the bad wheel bearing is on. So I believe we've got a bad left rear wheel bearing on this truck. I'm gonna take it back to the shop, verify that, and if it is bad, we're gonna replace it. We're gonna get a little bit of help from Advance on this one too. It's gonna be fun. Let's do this. Now that we've heard the noise when we're on the road, I'm going to further confirm that it's the left rear wheel bearing by running it on the lift with the wheels just sort of freewheeling, and listen to it with a stethoscope. Hopefully you'll be able to listen in. I think you will. It's important to note, if you're going to run anything up in the air like this one's all-wheel drive, but on modern vehicles you want to make sure you turn off the traction control or else it will inhibit your ability to drive it while it's up in the air. Right. I believe I've pretty much narrowed down a left rear wheel bearing problem. This is another way to definitively prove that. Now, I'm fortunate enough to have a lift and I'm able to lift all four wheels up off the ground. This is an all-wheel drive vehicle. This is the only way to do this on an all-wheel drive vehicle, is to have all four wheels up off the ground. But you can isolate these wheels by simply wedging the brakes closed. Now, obviously, you need to be very careful when doing this. I'm just going to come up in here and wedge on this brake to slow this wheel down. We should really be able to hear the wheel bearing noise now that all the power is going to this side. Now if we switch sides, no noise at all from the other side. So this, in my mind, definitively proves this left rear wheel bearing is our culprit. Before I remove this wheel, I'd like to make a quick point. A lot of people have the misconception that a wheel bearing noise like this would be associated with a loose wheel, so you can grab the wheel and move it around. I haven't found that to be true. Wheel bearings that make noise don't seem to have any movement. Wheel bearings that don't make noise, that are really bad, those are the ones that seem to have the movement. So let's see if my theory is correct here. So I'm trying to move this wheel bearing and there's nothing. So it makes all that noise, but there's no play whatsoever. And that's mainly what I find in these instances. So you get a lot of noise, it won't move. You hear zero noise and it moves, that's when you're really in trouble. Now I'm sure you've already spied the brakes, which appear to be an issue. And they indeed are. But in this video, we're not focused on the brakes. For now, we're just going to focus on the wheel bearing. We're also going to need to remove this axle nut, which doesn't look like there's a whole lot of it left. I don't even know what size it is anymore. Okay, that's a win. Is it going to be love taps or the air hammer? The air hammer. Take that. While you're doing a job like this, it's probably a good idea to look around at the rest of the suspension components and make sure that they're good too. That wheel shake we did earlier went a long way towards that. Now, I want to try to avoid letting this hang by the brake hose. So I'm going to tie it up with a bungee cord. Finding this retainer on here means that this rotor hasn't been off since this truck was new. These are just there to hold the rotors in place when they first install them at the factory. When they put the brakes on, you can just discard them. Well then, it appears the rabbit hole gets even deeper because there is nothing left to these parking brake shoes at all. And in fact, this is what's left of those parking brake shoes. And that's probably the rust from the inside of the rotor as well. So we have other stuff to deal with here, but we're just focusing on the wheel bearing in this video. There's a couple of different ways you can approach this at this point. Since everything's still all attached, you can put a slide hammer on this hub and slide hammer it off. Similar to what I tried to do the last time on Brian's wheel bearing. If you're lucky, it should come apart. This time, however, I have another tool that I'm going to try out, and I'm going to use that to try and remove this hub. And the things we need to deal with over here are the ABS sensor that we need to remove. We also need to disconnect this parking brake cable to help stack the deck. A little bit of penetrating oil. Once again, this is an 8mm fastener that holds this on. And hopefully, I always say that, right? I really do hope. Undamaged. That is excellent. Now let's try this parking brake. All right, so we need to move this coil spring back and hold it in place so we can get this off of here. This, side cutters, might be a good option. Hopefully it'll come off of its perch. There we go. And now I'm going to try to do the opposite for this other side. Just going to move the spring up the cable a little bit. Pull this back through. All right, this part gets a little tricky. The cable passes through here, but I need to depress those little plastic tabs on either side of this in order to get this to pass back through. I can actually give you a better view of this once I get it out. Here's a better view. These little plastic tabs were sticking out. I had to depress them to pull this through. And once I did, I could take the cable down through this small slot up here and remove it. So now that's free. I'm going to disconnect this tie rod, for lack of a better word, first. It's 18. I don't like that. I'm just going to take the nut and put it back on, so that way I don't mess up the threads on it. Run those down flush. I've got something to hit against. I'm going to try to keep fasteners together while I work. I'm going to actually remove the other fasteners and then lift it up in the air a little more so I can get better access. Try the big guns. Bolt going through is an 18 on this side, 22 over here. Looks like both the tie rod and the upper ball joint there on that upper control arm are the same bolts, the same length. Well, that's already loose. That's pretty darn convenient. Let's see what we can do about this tie rod end. See if I can sneak in here. Spread this apart. I do have a longer chisel. I'm going to get it. Fine. Be that way. Penetrating oil can't hurt. It starts with penetrating oil, with like just about everything right now. Now that that's disconnected, maybe get this axle all the way through. That makes it easier to get to. I want to do something. There. Now, it does come out. Hopefully, it won't be catastrophic. Say hopefully. That's funny. Look what I got. Got me a hub. I'm proud of it. Okay. Step one, we need to, getting back my chisel, get the hub out of the center of this assembly. And that is where I hope my secret weapon will come into play. And also, there's a snap ring down inside this groove that you can see. It's going to need to be removed. Which starts with what, kids? That's right, penetrating oil. What is that special tool, you say? My hub grappler. Now, it was my thought that this could possibly save me from hammering on this thing all day, slide hammer or otherwise. And I just need it to find a way to grip onto here in such a way that I'm able to force that hub out through the other side. Before I position the tool, I need to remove the parking brake shoes. It's a real pain in the butt with the hub in the way, but I've got to do that because the way that tool is going to work, it's going to need to push against something, and it can't be pushing against these parking brake shoes, so we got to remove those. Now we can place our tool. Okay, I've got the tool pretty well positioned. I want to be careful not to damage the backing plate, so I'm avoiding the fasteners that hold it on there. Because in essence, it's going to be pushing against the backing plate as it pulls the hub through. So I want to make sure there are no obstructions, nothing's going to get bent. I don't think we can remove this backing plate without removing the hub, because I think it's just going to hit the hub anyway, so we're good there. But having the shoes out of the way, you want to do that. If not, you can damage the shoes. For us, that doesn't matter because our shoes are junk anyway, but so we're going to pull that through, and this is going to actually hold this in place and push against this knuckle while we run this down. Got to watch that stud there. All right, all studs I think are out of the way. There it is. That was a lot more effective than hammering on it for like an hour. And the inner race didn't stay stuck to this. I'm super happy about that. It doesn't look great, but it doesn't look bad. It's not all pitted up. I think a little bit of crocus cloth on here will be fine. See, it'll clean up nice. If this was scored or had some kind of groove in it, I'd be really concerned. I don't see that, so we're good. Now that we've got the hub removed, that's only part of the battle. Now we have to get the bearing out. And it was really fortunate that the race didn't stick on there, although I've got a trick for that I'll post a link in the description to of another video that I did. Next step, this bearing is going to come out in this direction. Right now it's held in by a snap ring. We need to remove that snap ring before we use, once again, the hub grappler to pull this out. Snap ring first, which is rested into place, but soaking and penetrating well for a bit. Maybe that'll be a good thing. Well, we're getting one side to move. That's encouraging. Feels like that's moving. Yes. And the hole is now visible for the snap ring pliers to go into. Ratcheting snap ring pliers. And a little more penetrating oil in the right places. There we go. We'll just leave this like this, kind of a loaded weapon, over here, in hopes that it stays just like it is. Now I can run this bearing out. This side gets these two washers. And put a little bit of oil in them, just so that there can be some stuff happening there. A little bit of oil in the threads. I've got all the proper size stuff. I have my tool positioned to drive the bearing out into this receptacle on this side. So it's going to pull it right through and into this. So you're not going to see anything over here, but you'll probably see somewhat exciting things over on this side. There goes nothing. Well, it's supposed to move. We may have to employ other means here. Come with me. That's my plan. 20 tons of plan. So if the hub grappler can't do it, well, if this doesn't, well, then we got real problems. There, just got real. This may make a loud noise. Hopefully there isn't shrapnel involved with that loud noise. That is one tough bearing. Yeah, I am standing over here. The jack is protesting. I'm just gonna take a look. But that is so in there. I feel like I should be standing behind like bulletproof glass. I'm just gonna try and get over here. Is there any movement at all? That hasn't moved one bit. Not one bit. In fact, I think it's bending my 20-ton press. There was definite flex in the press. This may call for more drastic measures. I think what I'll do, my only option, I mean, heat is really my only option at this point. So I'm gonna heat this area, but I'm looking at this and thinking, I'm gonna remove this backing plate, splash shield, whatever you wanna call it first, to get that out of the way so that doesn't get damaged. But the only thing I can come up with now is just heating the outside of this. I mean, the bearing's done anyway, so what? And then using the press and hoping for the best. That's all I got. I mean, I've never seen this. I've never seen anything not succumb to 20 tons. A wheel bearing not succumb to 20 tons like this. First time for everything, I suppose. And of course, all of you are watching. Like I said, kids, this here is a first. I'm gonna put some stress on it before I start to heat. That way, if the heat does have an effect, it'll be, well, as close to immediate as you can make it. I need like a rosebud to heat this up, which is a really large tip that heats a large area. It's a big piece of metal. I don't know how my heat is affecting it. Really? I mean, really? Actually, there is a way I can figure out how the heat is affecting it. All right, well, we're at about 420 some degrees right now. So it's not like it's not hot. It's certainly hot, but still not moving. I don't know, kids. We might just be starting over with this guy. I'm not going anywhere, is what it's telling me. I mean, it really is telling me that. It's saying, you know what, Eric, I'm not going anywhere. Guess we'll try heating this side. Nothing for it. Seriously, I've never, ever seen anything like this. I mean, really. Something is going wrong. It's starting to move. Ah, that's what happened. It damaged our cup. That's how much pressure we were putting on this. The bearing did start to move, however, I don't know if that'll work. Maybe. This is so ridiculous. I mean, if you can't solve a problem like this with a 20-ton press, it might not be solved. I'm about ready to call it a day. You can see where it's starting to bulge out. You can see where it's cut into the cast iron. It's been pressed so hard. It is fused into place. It is refusing to move. This leaves me with only a couple of options. If I want to get this done today, I may be able to cut this out. with the torch. Burn it out. Just cut it down one side and hopefully that relieves enough tension and maybe we can press it out, the remnants then. That's really the only option that I'm left with, aside from replacing this whole assembly with a salvage yard unit. That's all I got. I've got this outside the shop because there is going to be some rubber stuff that's going to burn and like that, and I'd rather be out here than in there with the toxic fumes and such. So I'm going to try to find something to sort of rest this up on, to get it up off the ground and take my last shot. I also have to cross my fingers and hope that this does not damage the knuckle. If it does, well, it'll be a short ride. I'm gonna try one down the other side just for good measure. You either made it a whole lot worse or made it so we can get this done. Either way, it was kind of cool to watch. Kill it with fire. That's the noise. like half a day. And I know I scored up the inside of that bore, but I think it'll be okay. Wow. 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 Now that the bearing has been liberated from the hub, I'm going to clean the inside of the hub. Now you probably noticed the cuts in the hub assembly itself. I'm honestly not concerned. The bearing race will cover that, hide all my sins. As long as it fits down in there and it fits down in there flush, presses in nice, we're good. But I'm first going to clean this bore and remove as much rust as possible before I go to install the new bearing. And I'm going to do that with this wire wheel. My freshly cleaned bore, which, as I stated, does have those scores on the inside, but as I stated, I'm not concerned. I'm also going to do what I can to clean out the snap ring land so that that can go in there nice when everything's all put back together. And I'll do that just with my pocket screwdriver. Now that we're sure that the hub is undamaged, that's important. When you go to do a wheel bearing job like this, you want to inspect the hub. If the hub is damaged, as I talked about earlier, then you're going to need to replace it. We're not going to need to replace it today. All we're going to need to do is replace the bearing. Let's head over to Advance and pick that up. Thanks, man. Well, thanks to Advance, we've got our part. We're going to go back to the shop and install it on the truck. Thanks, Advance Auto Parts. Now we need to install it. Some of these are directional. Some are. And you may notice like one side has a black seal and the other side has a chrome seal, but if the seals are the same on both sides like they are on this one, I believe you can install it in either direction, but it's something to note before you get started. If not, you could regret it. Before I put the bearing down into its bore, I'm going to take a little bit of grease, as I often do, and just lubricate the inside of it. I'm hoping that this helps eliminate corrosion or anything in the future. Also makes installation just a tad bit easier. I'm going to hope it presses in easier than it came out. It should. We can use virtually the same tools. We've got our little keeper guy here. Could probably always also use the grappler, but I've got this handy. I'll try to center this up as much as possible before I get going. Not quite centered, so I'm gonna do that, center it up. See, the press is working. I mean, it really is. That was not messing around before. Let's bring it over to the table and install our snap ring, come back and install the hub. Just gonna insert it down in. It's that easy. Super important. If you took this off, put it back on now. You forget it, you'll regret it. All right, remember before when I lubed up the inside of the bearing there, or inside of the hub assembly to insert the bearing. I'm going to do the same to the hub. Or should I call that a knuckle? Yeah, we'll call that a knuckle. It's sitting on the press right now. Just a bit of grease on the hub before we install it. Now you might be asking yourself, Eric, how are you going to press the hub in like that, like this? How are you going to do that, Eric? I'm not. If you don't play nice, this won't work. I expected that, but a hammer will cure it. No big deal. I think I already stated that I'm not going to be repairing the parking brake at this time. That's all that is the parking brake. It's got nothing to do with the actual brakes. We also need to deal with the actual brakes, not covered in this video. But what I will do is put some of those items back together, namely to try to keep moisture and things out. Now those will already be installed and ready. I'm going to take a zip tie and put it around this to make sure that these stay in place. Putting this on a couple of threads will help keep it from falling off of here. Take the axle with it. But I need to tap this into position so that I can get this bolt through. Probably wouldn't hurt. Clean these up with that same wire wheel that I was using before. Remember, these guys were both the same. Memory serves, this one went through this way. A few taps should get it through. When you're tapping it through, there's this groove right here that you're running the bolt past. That's the whole point. So you want to make sure that that groove lines up. So you might have to tap it a couple of times like I did to try to get it to fit in there correctly. Okay. It also helps if you put it in the correct way, because I just put it in backwards. But I know it'll go in and I know it'll come out. This will only go in one way. I couldn't put the nut on when I put it through the opposite way. You might ask if this would affect the alignment after you're done. I'd say it's a remote possibility because of what you're doing here. I don't think it's going to affect it in a big way, but whenever you do major suspension work or something like this, it can't hurt to have it checked. Whoops. Don't forget our ABS sensor. I'm going to gently put that plastic where it goes. Maybe just a couple of love taps. The reason I want to do that and want to make sure that it's flush before I tighten it down is it's plastic. If it's in there and this top part is leaning out and you tighten down the other side, you could crack the sensor, and that's what I'm attempting to avoid here. You don't need to put a lot of torque on this fastener. Just enough to run it snug should be plenty. Once again, I'm not doing the parking brake or the brake repair today. So the question is what to do with this brake cable. I think maybe I might just grab another one of those zip ties and maybe just tie it up here, or, you know, we're just gonna go for a test drive down the road to make sure that it doesn't make any more wheel bearing noise. I'm just going to leave it like that. And now for the axle nut. I usually give a little bit of extra on those, because if the hub is still a little bit loose, the axle nut will help draw everything together. So now there's no movement, no play. I'm very happy. Once again, we're going to worry about the brakes later. Yeah, a monumental amount of effort to get to this point. For me, they're usually not this difficult. But be prepared. That's all I gotta say. Be prepared. If it's as rusty as this one was, be prepared. Let's find out if this thing still makes a noise. We knew it was making noise over here, so I'm just gonna start with this. The only thing I hear right now is that brake rotor. Nothing like it was before. Let's take it out on the road, listen to it. All right, we're back up to speed. I don't hear the noise. Want me to do the slalom thing? Okay. I no longer hear that noise coming from the left rear. Very happy about that. Now, I realize I didn't address the brakes in this video. I will address the brakes. This is not going back to the owner until that's done, so relax. But the wheel bearing is taken care of, and that's what this video is all about. Speaking of that wheel bearing, I want to give a special thanks to Advance Auto for providing that for us. I'm going to put links for them in the description so you can check out some of the features they have. You can actually order parts online before you go to the store, store locator. Cool stuff. If you have automotive questions not covered in this video, I'd ask that you head over to EricTheCarGuy.com. I'll put a link in the description for that as well. If you wish to connect with me socially, Google+, Facebook, Twitter, also Instagram, also links. And I close each of my videos with be safe, have fun, stay dirty. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.